Waterford City and County Council, Jason Murphy, is on the line. You're very welcome to the programme. Back to the programme, Jason.
Good morning, Maria. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm not too bad at all. I was just dipping out, in and out of the programme there this morning, listening to the few comments regarding that email you received regarding Waterford being a KIP.
Yeah.
And a little bit disappointed to hear it. I know there's some issues around it, but there's an awful lot going on in Waterford at the moment in terms of the Greenway and in terms of the Johns River Walk, the Viking Triangle. I think we have a fantastic county here. I think we have a county that has more diversity maybe than any other county in Ireland, and I think it's about time we got up on the rooftops and started shouting that out. And I know there's issues maybe around some of the issues spoke about this morning, but recently we received a purple flag too, which is not given out willy-nilly. So I'm a little bit disappointed to hear some of the comments, but I think Waterford is coming on in leaps and bounds.
Yeah, I don't think, nobody's going all Pollyanna on it and saying, it's perfect, it has everything it could possibly want. What are you talking about? It has issues, of course it does.
It has issues,
You know, to
but
say it's a KIP, it's a bit harsh.
I think they've been addressed. And in fairness to the council and the executive, I think we're very lucky. We have a very progressive council, a very progressive executive. And I think we are moving forward. It will take some time, but I think this county is going places, and I am looking forward to where we are going. We are going places, and I think we are going to become a venue. We're already known as a festival venue. You have Spree, you have Winterville, you have the food festival, and tourism, I think, is the way forward. And I think we are making great strides on that.
And I think very few people who come here go away thinking that place is a KIP.
No, I think Waterford people are fantastic people. We're very forward thinking. We're very progressive. And I said, what Waterford have, and I think we should be pushing it an awful lot more than maybe we sometimes do. We're a county of massive diversity. You have beaches, you have mountains, you have the oldest city in Ireland. You have Lismore, you have a town there with two cathedrals. We have fantastic stuff going on in Waterford. There's so much diversity for such a small county. And Mayor James Tobin, a couple of weeks ago, he organised a trip for councils just around the city. So just a walk around the city. And I was amazed that some of the county councillors were amazed on what's on offer in the city. But what that said to me is the diversity we have in the city and we have in the county. So we have an awful lot to be proud of. And I think, look, there is issues, and I'm not looking at it through rose-coloured spectacles, but we have an awful lot to be proud of. I think we can be this county of something. We can be the new, if you like, Killarney. Once upon a time, we were seen as the road to Killarney. I think that's changing now. With the Viking Triangle, we're becoming a food capital. You have fantastic chefs. We're known as the culinary capital of Ireland. I was interested to see that in the Lonely Planet Guide. So there's an awful lot going on. Of course, there's issues, but they will be addressed in time as well, I'd hope.
Now, the reason that you're on this morning is to talk about your concerns for plans, or maybe the plans that aren't happening for the 1916 Easter Rising Centenary next year.
Well, this is something I myself would be very passionate about, and I was very fortunate to attend the government's launch 2 weeks ago of their programme for 1916. And while it was impressive in terms of Dublin and in terms of remembering the past and the permanent reminder of the GPO and Kilmainham Jail and what have you, my point of view would be that the Rising belongs to all the people of Ireland. I'd be an old-fashioned Republican, and I believe that the Rising belongs to everyone. Now, I was a bit disappointed to learn that in terms of funding and how we remember the Rising and the revolutionary period, the 1916 to 1921, that the councils across the country are only receiving €30,000 in funding. So there's about 31 off the top of my head of councils across the country. So that's €1 million in funding is what the government are committing to. And I think it shows a lack maybe of vision on the part of this government. Because as I said earlier on, I really believe that that period belongs to the people. And for me, I would like to see it been led by community groups, by arts groups, by schools, by theatre. There's not a lot you can do for 30,000. So I think it's a derisory amount of money. And I was listening to the news this morning, and Jane Cantor was on from the City Council, who was a very extremely progressive arts officer. She's over the libraries in the City Council. Now, the arts grants this year, now don't get me wrong, I fully support it. I would be very much in favour of anything the arts get. They got 220,000 and they deserve every single euro of it. Now, there's 30,000 been spent on the commemorations of 1916. And when I look at, look, if this was happening in France, if this was Bastille Day, if this was happening in America as a celebration of the American Independence Day, or indeed in our near neighbours England as Armistice Day, there'd be a national outcry. As I said earlier on, 1916 belongs to all the people. And to give 30,000, it'll go nowhere, Maria. I'd actually say we need another note on the end of that.
Does it need money, though, or is it something that, like, people can commemorate? Do you know what I mean?
Well, they can. The community, but everything costs money. I mean, in my view, right, we need to put lasting reminders. Now, I think there's a bigger picture here. History is no longer a core subject in school. My little fella now, there was an open day up in St. Paul's School, and not through no fault now at St. Paul's, but you had an option to pick history or geography. So I think there's a bigger picture around this too. We need to have a reflection on how we remember this period without revisionism, without it being hijacked by any political party. I mean, if you look at the signatories of the 1916 proclamation, most of these guys were poets, they were visionaries, they were educationists, and they were committed to the culture and the proud traditions of this nation, including its languages, music, its sport. And like, this needs to be celebrated. And to give local authorities 30, that'll go absolutely nowhere. It'll go nowhere. Like, this is the 100th anniversary. Me or you or anyone else listening to this program won't be there for the bicentennial. This is extremely important. I mean, I was just going through me bits and pieces this morning, and I was looking at the proclamation. I mean, if you look at the proclamation, it's one of the most progressive documents you could ever look at. And if you have to look at it in the context of the time it was written in 1916, at that time, right, and we were part of the UK at that time, women didn't have the vote. You didn't have the vote unless you had a property. And even if you had a property, only 60% of people that owned a property had the vote. So and what that proclamation stood for was universal suffrage. It stood for religious and civil liberty. And that's something that we need to celebrate. And the 1916 to 1921 period is something I'm extremely passionate about. It was probably a time of when we had the most in national unity. We're coming out of an extremely difficult period economically over the last 7 to 8 years. That hurt an awful lot of people. And we need to look back and get inspiration from these people. That period was, like I said earlier on, was a period of massive national unity. And
but do you think next year, Jason, will reignite interest in that and will,
I think it will.
Give people a renewed interest in finding out about it?
Yes, I think it will. And that's why I think it's extremely important that we invest financially in this. Like, as I drew back about history not being a core subject. And in terms of Waterford, the government is very Dublin focused on this. There's an awful lot going on in Dublin. But in terms of what I spoke about Waterford earlier on, we have an awful lot to be proud of during that period. People forget that Cllr was RTD for Waterford County. He was the first president of the Republic. Eamon de Valera was in prison, I think, in England at the time. And Cllr was the first president of the Republic. He was the first Ceann Comhairle of the first Dáil. And he was RTD. And we don't push that enough. And I think there's all kinds of aspects around this. I don't think people realise at this stage how massive this is going to be. I mean, like I said, France and Bastille Day and American independence and what have you, this is absolutely going to be massive on a tourism level as well. There's an awful lot of drives around this, and I think our children need to know what the basis of a republic is. Like I said, that document, that proclamation, our constitution is based on that document. And I was up at our own launch, our Fianna Fáil launch, and I'm very keen, actually, and I'm very hopeful that this won't become party political. And I don't think it will, because I was actually speaking to Councillor John Heron after our last council meeting, and he also is very keen that this would be seen as a community event belonging to all the people. And I'll talk to Fine Gael and I'll talk to Labour about it as well. But getting back to that document and the 1937 Constitution, we have the only constitution, as far as I know, in the world that was passed by a democratic mandate. Our constitution was passed by the people, and it was based on that document, and that's something to be celebrated. And I think I'm not sure of this present government's commitment to roll that out.
Somebody's after texting in now. There you go, Maria. Fianna Fáil jumping on the 1916 bandwagon. Sinn Féin have held commemorations all over the country every Easter for the last decades and raised money themselves and will continue to do so.
Well, my answer to that, I spoke with John Heron, and my answer to that is Fianna Fáil have held an Arbor Hill commemoration, and I go to it every year since 1927. Now, I organise a commemoration, and I'm not getting into pine score, and that's something I organise a commemoration as well. A couple of years of Sean O'Rourke commemoration. That's not what it's about. The Republic and this document belongs to all the people. Now, that's something I hope we won't get into. Pine score, because at the
somebody
end
else is saying, Jason, you'd want to check your history books. Waterford City was not a big fan of 1916. Waterford was the only area to vote against independence from Britain. WLR had to have bodyguards in the streets of Waterford and was in fact stoned by the general populace. That's from Marion.
Well, I tell you, Marion, I check my history. I am a very keen student of history. Waterford was two constituents at the time. It was Waterford County and Waterford City. Waterford County elected Cllr was a TD in 1918. It is true to say that Waterford City elected Willie Redmond, John Redmond's son. Now, there's all kinds of very intricate reasons behind that, and that goes back to the pig buyer strike in the early 20th century. And if that lady wants to come on and debate it, I'd be very happy to debate it.
That's for another day, Jason.
But definitely, and look, I'm not knocking that tradition either.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is this belongs to everyone.
All right.
This point in the last text that says that everyone has a right to celebrate. At the end of the day, the Labour Party was in the GPO through James Connolly. Fianna Fáil were in there. Six Fianna Fáil ministers in our first government in 1932 were actually in the GPO. But I'm not here to say that. What I'm here to say is that it belongs to everyone. And I want this to be celebrated in a very dignified, in a very inclusive and a very transparent way. This is not about political pine scorn. This is one of the most glorious periods in our history.
Okay, Jason, I have to leave it there.
Versus Fianna Fáil. Thanks very much.
Thanks a million for talking to me. See you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
That's Fianna Fáil member of Waterford City and County Council, Jason Murphy there. Let's have you